Good day, everybody. Dave Walker here with the B2SMB Institute. And as part of our Best2SMB Awards content, I honestly can't believe I haven't done this yet because we've had the awards now for going on 4 years. And I have never actually sat down with two agency professionals, those who serve our B2SMB brands, and talk to them about what goes into making a Best2SMB brand. And smacked my forehead about 6 weeks ago and said, gosh, I know a lot of really smart people in the agency world, two of which are joining me today to talk about what makes Best2SMB brands. First of all, Samantha Berg from NextStreet, managing partner of NextStreet. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
And your friends call you Sam, which I can say because I know. Yeah, I call you Sam. And then someone who I think came to our very first conference in October of 2017, and I've known him since then, have a lot of respect for him, Rob Levin, who's the founder of RSL Media. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me, and thanks for putting me on a panel with Sam.
Yeah, and it's great to have you both here because I think that you both can help illuminate this topic of, from your perspective, what makes a Best2SMB brand, what makes them kind of over and above all the other, at last count, 7,500 plus brands who sell to small businesses. What makes those that really kind of rise to the top? But before we get into that, let's just do a quick 411. I'm not going to presume that all of our members who know who you are and who your companies are. So Sam, why don't you start? Give us the 411 on you and on NextStreet.
Sure. I'm Sam, and I've been in the business of small business longer than I want to count in years. Rob and I were talking, I think, earlier this week, and I was mentioning that I had a different hairstyle. Certainly wasn't gray at that time. And
I've had a pull in there.
And I've been in the business of small business, both at corporations as well as having my own small business. And I currently am a managing partner at NextStreet. And what NextStreet does is we work with corporations, governmental agencies, nonprofits. We essentially mobilize capital, customers, and capabilities to small businesses that have been systemically held back. That's really the key for us. Really we're focusing on uplifting those small businesses to create generational wealth and close the racial equity gap. To date, we've served over 4 million small businesses. We've directed capital of around 3 billion small businesses to small businesses that have been underserved. And so we work with corporations like Verizon, JP Morgan Chase, the MacArthur Foundation. We also work with cities, Chicago, for example, Columbus, New York City. And so that's a little bit about us.
That's awesome. And you, particularly from your background and your obvious subject matter expertise, is going to be really interesting to talk about really the service to underserved communities as being a critical part of B2SMB brands going forward, as I'm sure you'll agree. Rob, how about yourself?
So RSL Media originally started out as a media company called the New York Enterprise Report, serving the small and mid-sized business market in the New York area. And our advertisers and sponsors, including Sam many years ago, where I didn't have a different hairstyle. I actually had hair. Were coming to us for help with their content. And then we at the time we called it custom content. And now here we are about 18 years later, we're helping a variety of different clients, not just with content, but with a variety of issues related to sales and marketing, all around the SMB market. So we've been doing this for quite a while as well.
So both of you, in your capacities and what you do for your companies, I hope I'm not imagining this wrong, but I would assume that there's a lot of times when you're sitting down for a first meeting with executives from a business to small business brand, one that is selling at scale to small businesses. What are some of the most common needs that they're identifying in that first meeting that they have with you? What are the things they need help with? Sam, start with you.
For us, it's a couple of things. One, they don't know how to reach the underserved businesses. And in particular, they don't know how to reach Black and brown business owners in rural areas, business owners, maybe who are veterans, LGBTQ. And so they're looking for a way to attract those underserved businesses. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is they're looking to understand what products and services might fit their needs. And very often they have products and services for small businesses, but they're not necessarily reaching those or fulfilling a need for the small businesses that they're trying to target.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that in addition to reaching, they're trying to make sure their messaging comes across to those small businesses as well. So that's really some of the challenges that they face. Very often they know who they want to target, but they don't know how to get there.
Well said. Rob, how about you?
So it's shifting a little bit, but still companies are coming to us because they want to improve their content, right? It's usually a piece of their content. Like, you know what, we want to do something like this or that we're not able to do in-house, which, keep in mind, just 5 years ago, not even companies, we're still struggling with content in general, and not all of them were on the content bandwagon. So they're coming to us usually for something like content, or again, something specific, like, you know what, we need some content for our nurturing program. But I'm guessing from here, Dave, I'll leave it for this question. That's really not what they need and where they need to start.
Yeah, so take it and run with it. Because those conversations, and Sam, I don't know if you agree or not, but those conversations from their perspective of what they need is one thing. The conversation that follows no, this is actually what you need help with. So Rob, take that and run with it.
Yeah, I guess we helped ourselves with the segue there. So really what the need is they need to become more customer centric. They can't look at content as or a segment of content as a box that needs to be checked. You can't do that anymore. Everybody has content, and a lot of the brands are at least producing good content. We'll talk later about how good content isn't good enough. Really what they have to what B2SMB brands need to start doing a much better job of is truly being customer centric, not product centric, not company centric, but truly being customer centric. And this isn't just a marketing thing. It's marketing, it's sales, it's support. It's developing a mindset and a mission, not of selling a product, but of helping the SMB, the small business, mid-sized business, achieve their goal. And when you do that, you realize that content is just as important as your product. And the way you support your customers isn't just about how to get this thing done on your SaaS product, but actually how to help you achieve your goal. When you do that, everything changes. SMBs look at you in a different way. They actually would talk about you. Your sales and marketing expenses will go down. It's just amazing what happens. But most companies don't even know to ask for that. Of course, we bring it up in conversations, and if they start to appreciate that, then we can, we go further in the conversation. Otherwise, we might end up doing a small project, but quite frankly, it'll benefit them, but not to the extent of really having this customer-centric mindset. Will.
I love the pairing of mindset and mission, because I think that's so important. And Sam, maybe take up that thread of mindset and mission, particularly as relates to B2SMB brands and their interaction with underserved communities.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen an incredible amount of commitment to racial equity from corporations, actually $66 billion worth of commitments. The challenge is, getting to those or being able to put your money to work, and understanding the needs, I think, is really important. I would say there are a couple of other things I would also add to Rob, who is absolutely correct in making sure it's needs-based. For us, when we think about content, we think representation matters. And that's really important for who we serve. Another thing that we're very focused on is not going it alone. Very often corporations are not trusted by these underserved populations. And so how do you build trust? You build trust through trusted organizations. And so that's something else that we're really focused on, is making those connections between the corporations and the trusted organizations that are in the community working with Black and Brown business owners on a daily basis.
So I think what you're teeing up is maybe segue to the next question, which is reaching those communities and kind of one of your primary missions that you have is one thing, but actually successfully engaging those communities and building trust is another. Do the brands that you work with, is there a kind of a gradation between how much a brand actually gets that and how successful they ultimately are in working with you versus those that just don't quite get that, don't want to really cross into that frankly harder mission of engaging those particular communities and customers?
Yeah, we see the companies that are really successful in this space, they're putting resources towards it. And that's money, but it's also actually people, it's marketing, it's thinking about the whole continuum of how you serve those small businesses. And that is something that's very different in terms of organizations. They're not just, writing a blank check and throwing money out there, that they're really committed, that they put people on it, they put good people on it. They think about things like representation, like needs-based, et cetera. So those are the ones who, in my mind, are really succeeding. And they are the ones who are putting in the effort and they're putting in commitment. It's not just, a PR commitment, it's actual real commitment.
So I see you nodding emphatically, Rob. What from your perspective, just build on that?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't ask somebody to tee it up from our perspective any better. And I'll expand it to just, SMBs in general, not necessarily certain segments of SMBs. Here's what I've learned over the past, I don't know, let's say the past 10 years of doing this, as I try to get a little bit smarter. When you get the head of an SMB unit who really buys into this, that's great, right? But the difference between a good campaign or project or initiative and a great one is when that leader has espoused the mission and really what we're trying to do to the middle management team that's actually executing this, right? Mm-hmm. That's really important because remember, the person at the head of, there's a few people that we know, Dave, that are coming into mind right now. I won't mention any names, but when the head of the person says to the rest of the team, hey, guys, we're really doing this. It's going to really be customer centric. We want to help these SMBs and it's going to help our bottom line. When they do that, when we're in action with the people who are executing on these plans, the magic really happens. When they don't do that, when it's just kind of, hey, this is cool, but it's more lip service, then it'll be just a good project with good results, not amazing results. I hope that made sense.
No, it makes absolute sense. We've talked about in the past, Rob and Sam, including you now in this conversation, are the brands that really take an organic ground level approach, built from the ground up, bottoms up approach to needs-based everything on behalf of small business, more successful than those brands, those large enterprises that have been very, very successful in Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 and are now trying to enter the small business market space pretty much from the top down. They're trying to adapt whatever it is that they have to that small business market space. How would you grade the success of kind of both of those approaches? Sam, starting with you, if that question makes sense.
So just to rephrase, like you want to understand those who are entering versus those who have been in the business.
Well, it's actually, I think, from the very beginning, and Rob, maybe you can start it. The answer to this question is we've recognized that there are brands who they're absolutely business to small business brands. They're trying to sell to small businesses at scale, but their starting point is basically an existing portfolio of products that they sell to large enterprises, to fellow Fortune 1000. There are Fortune 1000 companies who throw that out and say, no, if we're going to be successful in the small business space, we're going to build something literally from the ground up, very much tied to the needs of small business. Rob, kind of unpack that a little bit and how you perceive success of each approach.
It's a really interesting question, Dave. I've seen it both ways, and what I mean by that is we're working with a company right now, large company, technology company, that they're starting to get into the SMB market, and they're trying to adapt their enterprise marketing to SMBs, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle. That said, I've also seen companies that are just a pure B2SMB company, not necessarily get it right. Again, because they're still product centric and not customer centric. So you can win either way. You really can. And obviously there's plenty of large companies that have served enterprise companies that go, oh, we've tapped out of the Fortune 1000. There's only 1,000 of them. We have to go further. And there's plenty of those that have succeeded because, again, they take that customer centric approach. And when you're taking that customer centric approach, you are naturally going to be building specifically, when I say building, product, marketing, sales, specifically for the SMB segment.
And Rob did a wonderful job of articulating the answer to the question better than I articulated the question. Sam, does it kind of make sense and from your perspective, again, particularly in the area of serving underserved small business communities, do you find that there's a greater success in really doing it organically from the bottom up versus trying to push it down from a top?
So I'm going to pivot a little bit, but I hopefully will answer your question. There always has to be a top down and a bottoms up approach in my mind. Top down meaning commitment from the top. It doesn't, having products that are enterprise products that you're pushing on small business, in my mind, typically doesn't work. Small businesses very often are consumers, right? Most of the small businesses are one person. They're not, 300 people. And so they look a lot like consumers. In my banking world, they often struggled where to put small business, right? Does it go with the consumer? Does it go with middle market? And it's really its own thing. You have to think about both. And small businesses are not one size fits all. But there are certain characteristics that you have to focus on with small businesses. The challenges that they have with capital, for example, very, very real. The challenges that they have with resources, extremely real. And so I think, going back to Rob's needs base, you really have to take that angle, no matter where you are in terms of your products and services. But, very often it does have to be a very focused effort, whether it's, bottoms up, top down, it has to be core to what you're focused on.
Thank you. You answered it better than I framed the question. I appreciate that.
I really like what Sam said, that you got to have both the top and the bottom engaged and weaving into this. It's really well said, and it's so true in reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So very simply, who are some of the brands that you hold up as being really, boy, these guys are doing a lot of the things we've been talking about. They're doing it right. So starting, Rob, with you, who are some of the brands that you hold up?
So I'll start with some clients, some companies that we're working with, and I'll mention at least one that we're not working with that I've been a huge fan of. Spectrum Business, with our help, they launched Spectrum Business Insights, content for SMBs, and they really wanted to step up the content game, and we've been doing that with them now for 4 or 5 years, and it's hitting the top line. It's driving sales, and we're excited about taking these things, the content. There's a lot more that they can do. We're excited about taking this to the next level. Interestingly, their predecessor company, Time Warner Cable, in this case, Time Warner Cable Business Class, we did a project with them called Solve, which was a digital and actually print magazine. Only, I think we finished the run maybe 4 years ago. We did it for about a period of 4 years. Massively successful because it had all of those elements we were talking about. It was about the customer. You didn't even see a Time Warner Cable logo on the front of the magazine. It was all about the customer. The content was some of the best content that we've ever produced, either when we were a media company or for a brand. And it was such a success that, and how often has this happened, Dave? You know, you're former, CMO, that the salespeople were saying this, which is something that marketing produced, is amazing.
And again, that's a Christmas miracle, right?
And yeah, exactly. And what happened there was the CMO at the time, she told the organization, and she stepped away from running it. She said, "Look, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a little different than what we've done." And it was a massive success. So really quick, another company, another client of ours, KPMG Spark, which does small business bookkeeping. They've repositioned how they go to market, how they sell. They've gone from being about a technology to being about a service, because at the end of the day, what do they help companies with? They help companies get their books done, right? And we help them migrate from demos of the product to consults, and all of a sudden sales are going through the roof. The company that is not a client that I'm a huge fan of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this company, Zapier, and I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right, which is basically an API tool. They've been doing an amazing job with a customer-centric approach. All you have to do is just check out their blog, their homepage and their blog, and it'll blow you away in terms of the content. I look forward to getting emails from them, right? And I'm an SMB myself. And then a shameless plug here. I'm a co-founder of a company called Work Better Now, which provides virtual assistants to small businesses. We're having an unbelievable, we're growing about 5 or 6x this year. And the team there is really killing it. And why? Our mission is not to sell virtual assistants. Our mission is to make our customers, as well as our assistants, more successful. And everything we do is surrounding that. And if you checked out the homepage of the company, Work Better Now, you'll see how we approach, how we're approaching, how we're positioning ourselves. And it's all about the customer and making them more successful. It's a few brands.
Very cool. Sam, from your perspective.
Well, I'll start with one client, and then I'll go into another client. Very, very different approaches, but really interesting nonetheless. We do a lot of work around small business ecosystems. We've actually worked in 27 cities across the country, from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles to New York City. And a lot of that work is funded by JPMorgan Chase. And I just want to give them a shout out because they spend a lot of time and resources. It's not stuff that's, hugely promoted, but it is really valuable work to understand what is happening in the small business ecosystem, who the players are, what the needs are, and really going deep into these cities to understand how they can help and how others can help as well to bridge any gaps that there may be. So kudos to them for that work. And then I also want to give a shout out to Verizon. Verizon has been a client of ours, and they made a commitment to bridge the digital divide for 1 million small businesses. And that's not an easy feat, especially since they're very focused on underserved, underrepresented small businesses. And they've done a number of things, from grant programs to accelerators. And about 3 weeks ago, we launched the Verizon Small Business Digital Ready portal, which is essentially I'm going to call it a one-stop shop for coaching, curricula, incentives, and community. And I am so impressed with the thoughtfulness of how they've done the content in terms of the curricula. Some of the key things we focused on is representation. And the curricula is really based around 4 areas that are of interest for small businesses. The first is obviously capital, because you need capital to bridge the digital divide. The next one is customers, and that's really a lot about marketing to for small businesses, and then operations and people. So really, really good stuff. And, you know, we talked about putting resources against things. They have it from, you know, commitment from the CEO and throughout the organization. And it's very impressive, you know, the interwovenness of the team, from sales to CSR to marketing, and their business unit itself. So really good stuff.
Really terrific examples. Question as we kind of wind this down, to both of you, what do you believe are the three key attributes that successful B2SMB brands are going to have in 2022 and beyond, particularly recognizing the impact of the last 18 months and whatever trajectory you believe we are now on as an economy and frankly as a small business ecosystem over the course of the next few years? Rob, we'll start with you. What do you think are the 2 to 3 key attributes?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a sense, it's the same thing that has been around for the past 5-10 years, but there are some evolutions that have happened. So again, I want to repeat it: have a mission and execute on that mission in terms of helping the small business. Putting that aside, agility is going to become more and more important. What do I mean by that? Well, what did we learn during COVID? The pace of change just keeps. It was already fast before COVID for small business, for all businesses, especially for small businesses. It's now accelerating, right? So companies that that are agile, that can change quickly, will thrive. What do I mean by that? Well, take for example, you know, work from home. So companies, and we helped Spectrum do this. Companies that can help small businesses through these challenges as they come up, are gonna thrive. And again, we saw Spectrum do a great job with that. And it's not just, you know, something like COVID, but think about the supply chain problems that all businesses are having. Small businesses, some are getting crushed by it. As B2SMB brands can quickly adapt to helping small businesses with these challenges, I think they're going to get a lot of brownie points in the space, and brownie points will turn into sales. And then 2 other quick things. Number one, again, realizing that good isn't good enough. You really have to be exceptional in not only your product, but your marketing, your support, and all of those things, because that's exceptional is rising to the top and everything else is falling to the bottom. There's not much in the middle. And then the last thing, I thought about this on the way in today. The last thing is be honest about who your target market is and who it's not. Small businesses are, the SMB market is very diverse. And if you say that you're serving everybody, some companies really can, but most companies can't. You're not able then to put in all your resources to those target markets that you truly do help. Not to mention you're going to burn some bridges, you know, signing up clients that aren't a good fit, and then they go ahead and tell their friends. So those are the things that I think are going to be important going forward.
I couldn't agree more. Sam, from your perspective, what do you think are going to be the key ingredients for successful B2SMB brands?
So for us, a lot of it is about fulfilling the commitments that they've made publicly. I mentioned the $66 billion in public commitments to racial equity, and focusing much of that on small business. And what we want to do is see that come to fruition. And the way we believe that small businesses will be successful is, one, capital. That's huge. Small businesses need capital desperately.
Mm-hmm.
Two, resources. So, products or portals like Verizon Small Business Digital Ready is a great example of that. Rob and I have had conversations like not all content is equal. And making sure, the resources that you provide to small businesses are really quality resources. There's a lot out there. And you got to cut through the clutter. And then, keeping to the commitment. And it's not just a one-time commitment, having an ongoing commitment to small business. People see through if you're just like, going on the next trend. But if you're really committed to small business, it's a long-term commitment. And that's something that we feel really strongly about.
Terrific answers from you both. Rob, last question for you, and then Sam, I'll narrow it a bit, but are you bullish, Rob, on the future of small business going into 2022 and beyond, particularly with the disruption that's happened in the last 18 months?
Yeah, it would be really easy to say I'm not bullish, just because, taxes, government regulations, all of these things make it so hard. Not to mention right now we have a massive talent shortage, but
supply chain issues. Yeah, so much stuff.
I'm incredibly bullish. Why? I mean, this is what this country's. This is a big part of what made this country great. Is you have these business owners that are probably technically some form of insane, because what many of them do is not having a steady paycheck when they have a family to support, and they find a way to pivot and scratch and claw their way to success, whatever success means for them as individuals. So I actually think that despite all the challenges, the small business population here in this country is going to do very well.
That's terrific. Sam, my more narrow question for you is are we finally going to get right on behalf of underrepresented small businesses in the US, and I would even extend it globally? Are we going to finally get that right in the next couple of years?
We are. We are, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I think on that. But I do just want to say, Rob is always a hard act to follow. I totally agree with him that the future is bright for small businesses. I just wanted to mention two things that I think are really important. New business starts record high, and that's huge because, as Rob said, like this country founded on small business. And the second thing that I think is really important is that like the digital economy is leveling the playing field for so many small businesses. And so that's a really, really important factor. Small businesses are able to compete with the larger organizations, and that's huge. So as insane it is to, start and run and maintain a small business, like there's real opportunity there.
Well said.
So, and that made me forget the second part of the question. How do we serve the?
Are you bullish on the success that we hopefully will finally have in better serving underserved small businesses?
Yeah, I think our firm in particular, and there's a realization across the board that the small business infrastructure is broken. And the capital infrastructure is broken for small businesses. The resource infrastructure is broken for small businesses, and there's a real focus, including from our firm, on fixing the broken small business infrastructure. And once we fix that small business infrastructure, I think we'll see a lot more support for businesses of color. Now, there are systemic challenges that we have, and those have not gone away. But we're going to get closer with the infrastructure builds that we're working on together. And I think you're seeing a lot more partnership among organizations, that partnership between community organizations and corporations and government agencies. And once we have those partnerships formed, we're going to be able to reach a lot more of those businesses as well.
The playbook that you guys have laid out in this conversation of what constitutes a Best2SMB brand has been fantastic. Rob, thank you for being, kind of with this community since its inception in 2017. And Sam, thanks for being a new member of the community. Rob, good luck to you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me, and thanks for reconnecting me with Sam too.
And Sam, thanks so much for doing this. Much appreciated.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.